What we have here is the 2025 updated Renault Kiger. Now this compact crossover has been given a midlife makeover and some new features 4 years after its launch. Today we have the turbo petrol manual and the turbo petrol CVT automatic with us. We're going to tell you all that's new and whether you should be interested in one. So stay tuned. Now the styling changes are primarily at the front. What you get is a more horizontally oriented design. You have a completely new nose, you have a new grille, the new Renault logo and a revised bumper in the front. The air dam is surrounded by a silver highlight that nicely breaks the monotone. New this time around is the inclusion of fog lamps. Also the headlamps, the DRLs and the fog lamps are now full LEDs. Overall, the reprofiled nose looks more aggressive than before and its modern design certainly makes a positive first impression. Over to the side you get new 16-inch alloys with red brake calipers in the turbo variant, and the turbo applique on the side also gets the R marked in red. Also, you get fully functional roof rails which can hold load up to 50 kilos. The Kiger's ground clearance of 205mm remains unchanged. Moving to the back, you get these new clear lens LED tail lamps and a completely revised design for the bumper. Also new is the Renault logo and the Kiger branding. And since we are already here, let me also show you its boot space. The Renault Kiger gets a class-leading 405 litres of boot space, and if you want to extend the cargo area, you can fold down the rear seats in a 60-40 ratio. With that, let's take a look at all that's new on the inside. The interior of the 2025 Renault Kiger gets a small change, but this small change makes a huge difference in enhancing the cabin's premium feel. What's that change, you ask? Well, it's the color scheme. Now you have a light grey and a black color scheme, and in the top end variants you also get yellow stitching on the steering, on the gear lever, on the armrest as well as on the front seats. In addition, you also get a Renault logo embroidered into the backrest. I think it really looks quite cool. And speaking of cool, what's also new with this 2025 version is the inclusion of ventilated front seats. It is a welcome addition and the news gets even better. Also, you have a multi-view camera. The camera is handy while parking the Kiger in tight spaces. However, some of its competitors have a bigger and better touchscreen with better resolution. Here's a look at all the features available with a top spec Kiger. And while we're on the topic of features, let me also tell you that the 2025 Kiger gets standard safety features like 6 airbags, ESP, hill start assist and a tire pressure monitor. In terms of storage, the Renault Kiger has large door bins, 2 places to rest your phone, one of them being a wireless charging pad. You have a large central storage area, and mind you, this time it does not have a cup holder. Previously, those cup holders were rather inconvenient to access, if you remember. Also, you have twin glove boxes. So storage areas are plenty, but not all is perfect. One thing that's carried over from the previous version are some of its ergonomic foibles. As an example, the large center console does hamper into the knee room for tall drivers. Also, the footroom is a bit cramped, and if you want to engage cruise control, you have to activate a switch here and then use the steering. Shifting focus to the rear, the Kiger is surprisingly spacious and the back seat is a comfortable place to be. What's missing though are USB charging ports for rear passengers, and there's only a 12-volt socket. Also, the middle passenger doesn't get a head restraint. Now let's see how this car feels from behind the wheel. Like before, the Renault Kiger gets 2 engine options. There's a 72 horsepower 1 litre naturally aspirated petrol engine, and then there's a 1 litre turbo petrol engine which makes about 100 horsepower. Now both these engines are available with a manual and an automatic transmission each. The 1 litre naturally aspirated engine comes with either a 5-speed manual or a 5-speed AMT. The turbo petrol, on the other hand, either gets a 5-speed manual or a CVT automatic. The version that we are driving here today is the turbo manual version. Almost immediately, what I can tell you is that the noise, vibrations and harshness levels of this car have certainly come down. It is a lot quieter than before and it feels a lot more refined. And that is thanks to Renault's special efforts in this area. That said, the cabin isn't completely devoid of vibrations. These continue to be felt at idle, and the 3-cylinder thrum still filters through a fair bit at higher revs. The Kiger has gained some weight on account of all the safety features as well as the features that have been added to this version. Hence, its powertrain has been tweaked to ensure that drivability remains unaffected. So yes, what's nice is that even at low RPMs, this engine doesn't have significant turbo lag, and it just feels quite drivable and quite responsive on tap. And Renault claims that this car can do a 0 to 100 quicker than its rivals thanks to its lightweight construction. The outgoing version sprints to 100 km/h in 11.5 seconds. However, due to heavy rains, the conditions to test this version's acceleration were less than ideal to get an accurate reading. With this turbo version, like before, you get 3 drive modes. There's Eco, Normal and Sport. These modes not only tweak the throttle response but also alter the steering's weight. The Kiger steering is nice and light and it's quite direct too. Now don't get me wrong, it doesn't have any sort of feel or feedback that you'd expect from an enthusiast car. However, you will enjoy maneuvering this car around or parking in tight spaces thanks to the lightness, which really takes away the effort of twirling this unit. Of course, you can feel a fair bit of heft when you switch to sport mode. The clutch is on the heavier side and even the gearbox isn't the smoothest in its operation. So while the manual controls leave a lot to be desired, quite honestly, if you were in the market for a Renault Kiger, the turbo CVT is the one to get for its smoothness and for its effortlessness. What's nice is that this continuously variable transmission is also programmed to mimic steps in order to minimize the rubber band effect. This CVT complements the turbo petrol engine really well. As far as ride and handling goes, quite honestly, we can't give you too many drive impressions because we're driving on this test track. However, the Kiger's ride and handling have always been good and confidence inspiring, and going by first impressions, I don't think this one's any different. That said, let's take a look at the prices of the entire Kiger range. The 1-litre naturally aspirated unit starts at 6.29 lakh rupees. However, if budget permits, get the turbo CVT, which is available in 2 variants, one at 9.99 lakh rupees and the other fully loaded one at 11.29 lakh rupees. The 2025 Renault Kiger builds onto the strengths of its previous version. And like before, you get a spacious interior, a large 405-litre boot, and you still get 2 engine options, a 1-litre petrol and a 1-litre turbo petrol, both with a manual and automatic transmission option each. In addition, this new version also gets a more upmarket interior, more premium features such as ventilated seats, a 360-degree camera, and more safety features as standard. So yes, if you've always liked what the Renault Kiger had to offer, you'll certainly love this one.